Alright, got two people here. I wish there was a way to see the people. There probably is. I want to see who's in there before they comment. But thanks for the 5 of you. Illinois Ghost, how's it going? Alright, up to 7. And then I'll probably start once we get to about 10 or so. I'm kind of under a time crunch, and I'll explain that why here in a minute. All right, we're at 8. Let's see if 2 more will get in. Olaf from Maryland. HP Erd. Is that supposed to sound as purd or HP and then Erd, ERD? Olaf from Maryland. I always feel like you comment from somewhere else. Like Olaf from, I don't know if it's you that out, just Holly works. Holly, good to talk to you again. All right, we're at 8 now. You know, realistically, that's probably how much we are going to get. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. Oh, we did reach 9, so that's always good. So let me give me 2 more seconds. I'm gonna minimize this stuff real quick. Alright, you reflected on the notion. I already read that, so I think I did 2 X's. Yep, okay. Yep, there we go. And take this and minimize it. This. I wish I knew all sorts of fancy computer work for going live so you guys could look at the stuff as I'm seeing it, but I'm just not that technically inclined when it comes to computers. Jen Juniper, nice to have you here. Mary, same with you. Ryan, Milan, very curious to hear what's going on in your brain. Oh, it's never ending. My brain is always curious. All right, so we got 12 people in here, so that's cool. Yeah, Illinois Ghost, I've thought about using it. I know Fenn Treasure Hunter uses it. I don't have a different camera for my laptop, and the one that I have on there now is like really crappy. So I just stream from my phone, so that way there's no buffering or lagging or anything. And I can sit there and watch it on my computer as well while I'm looking at other stuff. So it kind of works. I mean, it's nothing fancy, but like I said in previous videos, I'm not trying to reach 1,000 subscribers or monetize or anything. Okay, so we got 12 people in here. So just a reminder, Fenn Treasure Hunter is going live at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, which will be an hour from now. And he is going to be having Adventure on his channel as a guest. So that should be pretty interesting and fun to listen to. So because of that, I'm probably going to shut this down at either 10-2 or 5-2 the next hour. So I'll probably run for 50 or 55 minutes. I'm going to try to get through as many questions as possible. So that way it puts a larger dent in these questions. All right, so I think we left off on, you talked about how you worked on Change the Poem for many years. As you read it today, are you still completely content? So the questions that I'm going to read today, keep in mind, this is still from 2014. So like I said yesterday, I think it was yesterday when I made that video, 2014 was a very active year for Fenn to participate in the search community. So there's a lot of questions that were answered from 2014. So we haven't even put a dent in them from yesterday. We answered 6 from 2013, and we've probably read through 20 of them from 2014. And then the subsequent years we'll go back down to 6 and only 6. All right, so with that being said, let's get started. And my dogs are barking, that's awesome. Are you willing to say whether the place of the treasure chest is the same as the one where you had previously plotted to have your bones rest forever? And that was anonymous. Dear Anon, I feel somewhat disadvantaged since you chose not to identify yourself, but I will answer your question anyway. Yes, it is. There's, can't really say much about that. All right, so the next question, on June 16th, 2014, why do you want the bracelet back? Uh, Dear Anonymous New Mexico Searcher, I'm not going to tell you my name either. So, in the future, if you plan on emailing Forrest Fenn, I don't think he likes it when you do it anonymously, because this is the second smart remark he said to somebody anonymously. I'm not going to tell you my name either. I am intrigued by the bracelet's history, as I have revealed in my book, The Thrill of the Chase. Many years ago, one of the small prehistoric turquoise beads fell out of the bracelet. The Indian silversmith who repaired it for me buffed the 22 beads that were aligned in a row across and breadth of the bracelet. It turned a beautiful antique object into something new looking. At first I was upset, but then I realized that we each view life from a different perspective. The Indian wanted to give the bracelet back to me, as he thought it looked when new. So that was okay with me. I feel like he's just commenting really on what had been done to the bracelet. He doesn't answer, why do you want the bracelet back? He says, I am intrigued by the bracelet's history, as I revealed in my book, The Thrill of the Chase. So in The Thrill of the Chase, he mentions that he wants that bracelet back because he won it in a pool game, with his good friend. He was like fascinated with the history, but he doesn't really say that here. Now he's just talking about repairs that had been done on it and how something old turned out new looking. For the record, I really don't think that Fenn wants the bracelet back. I think that he says that he wants the bracelet back to only bring up talking points about the bracelet, which could potentially be another hint. Fenn Treasure Hunter, how's it going, Jason? I just told the room about your live video coming up here at 7 Mountain Time with adventurers. So hopefully a lot of these guys will migrate over there. But yeah, like I was saying, I feel like by him saying that he wants the bracelet back, he's able to talk about stuff with that bracelet and have hints thrown into there. But really, I mean, he wouldn't have put it in the chest if he didn't plan on giving it to the person that finds it. Okay, on June 17th, 2014, what is the most valuable object in the chest? Fenn said, hard question to answer. A beautiful gold nugget can be worth 4 times the weight value. There are several in the chest that fit that description. So maybe that's a good answer to your question. So Fenn is answering it in aspects to monetary gain, not to sentimental value, because if we talked about sentimental value, then obviously Fenn probably would have said the bracelet. It would have been another talking point to bring the bracelet up. But now he's talking about gold nuggets, which for the record, for people that talk about the value of the chest, and they add up all the gold and whatnot, and how much 20 troy pounds of gold would be worth. Gold specimens are worth a lot of money, right? If you can find a piece of gold still in quartz, there's a pretty big market for that, and the price of it skyrockets. But not only that, gold nuggets as well. So I definitely wouldn't go off from the weight of gold. I would go off from the collector's aspect of people that are into collecting gold specimens, gold nuggets, and stuff like that. All right, continuing on. All right. Okay, I think this might be a 2-part question. Yep. Hi, Forrest. I'm curious about your time spent in Biloxi, Missouri at Radar Mechanic School. And or is that Mississippi? That's Mississippi. All right, I'm curious about your time spent in Biloxi, Mississippi at Radar Mechanic School. and I was wondering if you received any technical training or electronic theory and circuitry schematics, circuit tracing, troubleshooting components, things like that. Fenn says, that is what the school was mostly about, and I'll admit, I don't feel rewarded for having attended it. Then the question says, you also mentioned on multiple occasions that it took 2 trips to secret the chest and contents to a very special place. Perhaps someone has already asked this, but I've not found an answer yet, posted or in a video recording that contains the answer. Forgive me if this is redundant, but were both trips made on the same day/date? Not to be anal, but that would be one spinaroo of a giant ball we call Earth that constitutes a single 24-hour day to its humble inhabitants. Thanks so much. Fenn says, you make things so complicated. Reminds me of the reason I don't like meetings. I hope you don't belong to a PTA someplace. I made 2 trips from my car to the hiding place, and it was done in one afternoon. Alright, so I talked about this on my video before this video. You know, exactly what I think of, you know, morning, afternoon, evening, night, middle of the night, rolling over into the morning. So when Fenn says, I made 2 trips from my car to the hiding place and it was done in one afternoon. Alright, I made 2 trips from my car to the hiding place. Back and then back again. All in one afternoon. Afternoon being from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'll agree with 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is what begins the mark of evening. I had said in a previous video that I think it's 5, but let's go with 6. So essentially in a 6-hour period is when he went from his car to the hiding place, back to the hiding place, and then back to his car. I know there's a lot of talk about, you know, does that one afternoon involve the drive and so on and so forth. We really don't know. So really we have a 6-hour time window, because Fenn is the type of person, you know, in his book he mentions, you know, the evening meal was called supper and so on and so forth. So he definitely uses that type of wording, you know, morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, so on and so forth. So we have a 6-hour period, pretty much, that we can close it in on that he had hid the chest. I mean, I can't say that for certain, but I feel like, you know, that he would agree with that. But still, 6 hours is a long time. Now, if you factor in, you know, walking or hiking, you know, our military standard is to walk 15-minute miles. So in 1 hour, you should have been able to walk 4 miles. All right, so now obviously, you know, cut that in half, or that means that 2 miles out, or 2 miles from the car to the hiding place, and then the 2 miles back, you know, that could potentially be 1 hour. You know, that's not including, you know, time getting something out of the car, or hiding stuff away, or camouflaging, or anything like that. But it might help you to kind of think of it when you're doing a map reconnaissance of your area, to say, you know, is it feasible that he could have parked here and then walked to this point twice within this 6-hour period. And then this comment, I hope you don't belong to a PTA someplace, and the reason why I don't like, the reason why I don't like meetings. He's always throwing some teacher comment to people that ask, like, smart-ass questions, I feel like. Like the woman that asked about the, you know, if such and such author was an inspiration. And he's like, are you a teacher, a librarian, or are you just, you know, diverse in literature? And I read it like a backhanded compliment, you know, or something like that. But anyways, continuing on. All right. Okay, this was asked on June 20th, 2014. Dear Forrest, which is the first clue? The first line, or the line that starts with begin it where warm waters halt? He says, thanks. You guess. All right. This was obviously prior to him announcing that where warm waters halt is the first clue. All right. Will you ever start talking about where the bronze bells are hidden, and are you still writing the children's book? This one is a huge talking point to me. All right. I have talked about where the bells and jars are buried. They are in the mountains and the desert. I plan to bury about 15 more this summer. Thanks for asking. I considered co-writing a children's book with a very talented lady, but decided that fiction was not for me. All right. Going back to bells and jars. All right. There's numerous references to bells and jars in The Thrill of the Chase, the book, and as well as in his interview. He's talking about the olive jars. He's talking about, the bell rang, or the school bell rang, and I shot out there as uh, like a cannonball on fire or something like that. He goes out of his way to mention bells, and I feel like, that's definitely got to be a hint towards something. But this part, thanks for asking. I considered co-writing a children's book with a very talented lady, but decided that fiction was not for me. All right. The Thrill of the Chase and all of his other books are supposed to be true, right? Are as true to history as one man can average out that truth. Uh, but but that would be a nonfiction book, right? Something that is a true story. So the only way that fiction could not be for him in this sense is in the event that he changes the story so much that it would be like a fairy tale in the kids' book. If he changed, the places, the people, so on and so forth. But then all the kids that would have had the book read to them wouldn't think that the treasure is real. They would, like they would like the story maybe, but they would never go looking for it. And obviously, that wouldn't be what Fenn had wanted. So why does he say, I decided that fiction was not for me? For him to decide that fiction wasn't for him, he would have had to do a work of fiction previously to be able to decide that he didn't like it. So I'm saying, going back to what I said in my last video, the stories that are in Fenn's book are not his personal stories. The stories that are in Fenn's book are spin-offs of stories that are in the books of For Whom the Bell Tolls, Catcher in the Rye, The Outlaw Trail, so on and so forth. He's just wording it in a way that makes it seem like they are his memories, right? Pretty much saying that some stories in his book are fictitious. They're fake. They're not real. They're just told in a way that makes it seem like they're his, and that's why he says are as true to history as one man can average out that truth, and why he is able to say, I decided that fiction was not for me. All right, so I was going to say something else on that, but I feel really confident about that, and yeah, I think he's just telling you a story. Oh, that's what I was going to say. In his line where he says, just because Napoleon said that history is nothing more than fables agreed upon doesn't make it true. That's not what Napoleon said. Napoleon said, history is nothing more than lies agreed upon. So the difference between a lie and a fable is a story, like a fairy tale, or, like a little white lie or something like that, telling a story. A lie is to deliberately deceive somebody. So Fenn is telling a fable about Napoleon saying history is nothing more than fables agreed upon, right? He's not lying about it. He's just making a hint towards storytelling inside of it. Because hands down, history is nothing more than lies agreed upon. No doubt about it. And the fact that Fenn used fable, something's off right there, because I think Fenn would agree with you there, especially with all his hatred towards archaeologists, or dislike. I shouldn't say hatred. All right. On June 20th, 2014, I have a question for Mr. Fenn. When you hid your treasure, did you take the same path that is described in the poem, or were you able to skip some of the steps because of your familiarity with the area. Fenn says, the clues should be followed in order. There is no other way to my knowledge. All right, meaning, just going back to what I was saying earlier, when he says the key word is contentment, if you have found that, everything else has fallen into place, and how he emphasizes on you must figure out where warm waters halt. If you don't have that, then you have nothing. He's saying there is no other way, to his knowledge, can you find the answer unless you figure out where warm waters halt. You have to figure out where warm waters halt in order to be able to find the answers for anything else. All right, moving on. I would like to ask if you miss flying, and what did you enjoy most about it? Thanks for the question. I don't miss some aspects of flying, like the sitting and waiting to get from here to there. But in the F-100, I had 16,000 pounds of thrust in my left hand, and when I lit the afterburner, the plane almost flew out from under me. I can't think of any other exhilaration that can match that feeling. The only thing that stands out to me is from the amount of sitting and waiting to get from here to there. He always talks about there, and especially in his poem, he talks about there as if we know where there is. Beginning at where, all right, so where, what's where? A point, a location, a place, a site, so on and so forth. But when you use the term where in anything other than a question, you are assuming that the reader knows where is. They are familiar with the area that you're talking about. Like, yeah, just go down there. It's like, yeah, I'm going down there for a minute. All right, the person that you're talking to knows where there is. All right, or there is a way to describe, or there is a way to get the answer to there. Gosh, I hope that makes sense. All right, this question, and this caused quite a bit of controversy in the forums and videos. Did you really say the blaze is a white streak, as has been rumored? Thank you. No, I did not say that. There is a lot of bad information floating around on the blogs and many posts that are not well thought out. One person said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said the treasure is hidden in the trees. Then he contradicted himself and said it was in the sun. How could it be both? Makes me wonder if that person has ever been in the forest. So his line right there makes me wonder if that person has ever been in the forest. Now, is he hinting towards his treasure being hidden in the forest? Or is he saying that the person who made that statement with the trees and the sun, have they ever been in the forest? But I read that as, makes me wonder if that person has ever been in the forest, meaning that the treasure is hidden somewhere in the or in a forest. Otherwise, I don't think that he would make that comment towards somebody, with that quote, making mention of trees and sun. Excuse me. All right, here is a long one. All right, do you have a favorite artist or piece of work? This says, sure, Becky, or my friend, my friend Rebecca, as I suspect you to be. I'm assuming this person has, Fenn has probably already identified her writing style. There are so many wonderful art objects that for me to pick a favorite is tantamount of shotgunning to the world's great museums looking for the answer. The Pieta in the Vatican, Degas' little ballerina sculpture in the British Museum, I could go for a long time. But there is one piece that sticks in my mind. It's Pasqualita by Nikolai Fechin, the great Russian-American painter. It proves that sometimes it isn't so much the art as it is the artist, although I'm not exactly sure what that means. It just seems to fit the moment. The model is a little Taoist Indian girl who is leaning against a table and standing in white high-top boots. She holds a bouquet of flowers. Her expression reveals an amalag- amalgamation, wow, of all the things she hopes to become. I liked Pascalita so much I put her on the cover of the artist's biography. Wait, I liked Pascalita so much I put her on the cover of the artist's biography, The Genius of Nikolai Fechin. There is a sad story in the back of the book about the artist's ashes that I would repeat on these pages if Jenny thinks it might be appropriate. Did Fenn write a book, Nikolai Fechin, or is he just referencing a biography? Does anybody know? I'll try to pay attention to the chat, but I'll keep going. But I don't know if he's saying he just slapped a picture on there on the book that he had already owned. Ranger, dude. Is there somebody in here named Ranger, or I don't know who you're talking to? But he wrote it. Fenn wrote it. Okay, he wrote a book about him. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. But here he's talking about at the bottom of this, there is a sad story in the back of the book about the artist's ashes that I would repeat on these pages if Jenny thinks it might be appropriate. Man, there is a fascination with Fenn and ashes, or there's some sort of like symbolism to him, or it's sentimental for him in some way, because he talks about sprinkling the ashes on Taos Mountain of Olga, who he had tea with. Now he's mentioning it again, and it's just, why would he be so attached to something like that, or find all these reasons to appreciate the stories about ashes? If I don't know, it's hard to describe what I'm saying, but I hope you guys understand it. Scrapbook 163, Fenn. I have looked for artifacts in the mountains and deserts of New Mexico, Wyoming, and Montana. Okay. I don't know if, I'm assuming you were writing that to somebody else. Alright, on June 25th, 2014. Hi. Did the same 9 clues exist when you were a kid? And to your estimation, will they still exist in 100 years or 1,000 years? The clues did not exist when I was a kid, but most of the places the clues refer to did. I think they might still exist in 100 years, but the geography probably will change before we reach the next millennia. The Rocky Mountains are still moving, and associated physical changes will surely have an impact. If you are in the year 3009, it will be more difficult for you to find the treasure. So is he saying that the spot that he's referencing is, with that moving, is it going to close together? Which could be a reference to, take it in the canyon, but, is there a spot where, as time progresses, the walls keep closing in and in and in? Because he's saying it's going to be hard for you to find the treasure. Right here he says, the clues did not exist, but most of the places the clues refer to did. Meaning, not all of the clues not all of the places that the clues refer to existed. Most of them did. Meaning, between 1930 or whatever year he was born and now, some sort of geography has contorted it or pushed its way up, or so on and so forth, to be where it's at now. Unless he's talking about things like like the Transcontinental Railroad, or something like that. But he's mostly saying it in terms of geography. And that's a big thing that people get confused, is the difference between geography and geology. And when we're talking about terrain features, or mountains or whatever else, we're talking about geology, like rock formations and so on and so forth. Now he's talking about geography, which is like a combination of places, people, ethnicities. Is like everything that you learned about in geography class. Like, yeah, here at this part of the world, this and this and this happened. You mention some geography, and then it goes into, ethnicities of that area, and, the culture of that area, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's a pretty confusing question. But then he says the geography probably will change before we reach the next millennia, meaning he's anticipating something disappearing or growing or pushing over or coming together or something, because I mean something would have to be pushing over or closing in or something for it to be more difficult to find the treasure later on. Um, Tells me that something's like closing up or something. Um, all right, the definitions of words. This is on June 26, 2014. The definition of words seem to interest you. What dictionary and year of dictionary do you use for looking up words? This one's important. All right, this person, by the way, called themselves wordsmith, which I think Fenn kind of deliberately attacked. Interesting that you would ask that, Mister slash Ms. Wordsmith. It's like a, yeah, I gotcha, type deal. I don't use dictionaries anymore. I just type the word in Google for a faster response. It's fun to make up words and play with different spellings. When someone calls me out after noticing the corruption of a word I use, I just smile, especially when I say something that in my mind is correct, but in an academic sense, it's a horrible malfunction. For instance, emblazoned upon some of the bronze bells, emblazoned upon some of the bronze bells I buried are the words, imagination is more important than knowledge. If I had spelled that last word correctly, it would not have had the profundity of meaning I wanted it to. To misspell the word emphasized my point that having knowledge is, in fact, not as important as being resourceful. Also, when I make the mistake through ignorance, that ploy gives me a degree of deniability that I routinely need. He's almost saying like ignorance is bliss right there, and like, oh, I didn't know. Like he's saying he could get away with denying it if he really wanted to. But the most important part right here is this: uh, to misspell the word emphasized my point that having knowledge is, in fact, not important as being resourceful. Meaning, you can have all the knowledge in the world about the word knowledge, but you would sit there and point out, well, where's the D, right? But being resourceful is reading imagination is more important than knowledge, using the context around the word knowledge to know what he means when he misspells knowledge, if that makes sense. He's telling you, he's saying, I don't use dictionaries anymore. He likes to misspell words to get them to stand out, or to use it in a different meaning other than what's academically correct. And if you're resourceful, and if you look at those words if you look at them as a context clue, right? You read the words around it, you'll know exactly his wrong word. Just like I was saying the other day with tenacity. Yeah, how he used that word wrong, but we all knew what he meant. Yeah, we knew what he meant because we, without even thinking about it, we read the context around it and we're like, oh, he's persistent. But sometimes it's not as easy to do that. So he's saying that he likes leaving context, or he likes writing in a way that will make you search for context clues. Okay. I just he definitely points out, like, hey, thanks for the question, Mr. Wordsmith. Like, let me mess with you. All right, and this is a continuation of that. Now I will test you, Wordsmith. Write down the full definition of the word several, then Google it and learn that many of us don't fully understand some of the words we use every day, which goes right back into, he's saying some of us, we go every single day with using these words wrong, but people still know what we mean because the people that we are talking to, they know from experience what you're talking about. They know from, looking at the context of the word that's used, or they know from experience because they use the word wrong as well. So it's all coming down to being resourceful and using experience to figure out the context that the word is used in. I'm going to stop right here for a second and read through some comments. I just want to say hello to everybody that joined. We got a significant amount of people in here. Thank you. Is a posthole digger? Yeah, let's do it. Posthole digger. What's that? 83. Now, why do you say at 83? Is there a lot of people in disagreement with him hiding the chest in 2010? Or he says Peggy doesn't know. He says he hid the chest when he said he hid the chest in 2010 or around 2010. But he says that Peggy doesn't know within 18 months of when he hid the chest. Now, if you hid something in a year, in a certain year, a 1 year time frame, 365 days, how is it that somebody wouldn't know within 18 months? You have, on one hand you have 12 months, on the other you have 18. Obviously you can't fit the 18 months into 12, so how is there a question of when he hid it, for his own wife? Especially when he's coming out and saying things, like, I hid it when I was, 79 years old or 80 years old or 2010 or so on and so forth. Yeah, that kind of bothers me. Alright, I'm going to continue on. Alright, has anyone seen, or this was on June 26, 2014, has anyone seen or mentioned the blaze to you? Thanks for the questions. I have read them several times very carefully. They appear subtle on the surface, but they aren't. A yes or no to either question would give too much away, so I'll pass. Sorry, I'm aware that sometimes searchers will pick me apart for the answers. Maybe this was okay. The reason why he's saying for all the questions, because there was multiple on that one day. But he didn't answer the blaze question. But we know that people have been within 200 feet or 500 feet, so they must have seen the blaze. They just, walked right past the other clues or whatever. Or they didn't look quickly down the correct way, but he won't admit to having seen somebody have seen the blaze. Yeah, that could be a good point. Who just wrote that? He wants to protect her, in my opinion. That's very valuable. I mean, there's tons of people that would probably go out and freaking kidnap his wife or something and hold her for ransom for the answer to the clues. So that's a good point. But still, 18 months, but he's specifying a year. I really don't see how that could work, but I might be misunderstanding something too. On June 26, 2014, can the blaze be predetermined by the poem, or can it only be determined at the search area? You are a rascal to ask that question, and I have been sitting here for about 15 minutes trying to decide what to say. Well, it has been 30 minutes now, and I think I'll pass on the question. So, he's saying that he's not ready to admit if the blaze can be seen, using maps or whatever. But he also said that there's one clue that can't be done from home. And, in order for you to move confidently to, will have studied the poem and moved to the exact location, that means that you will have had to figure out the blaze from home on the computer. And the one thing that you won't be able to do from home, which is obvious, is retrieve the treasure. So, I don't know why he's telling us stuff and then contradicting the stuff that he's telling us, but he doesn't tell us up front. He'll say this sentence here and this sentence here and this sentence here, and only after you look at all of them will you be able to be like, oh yeah, all right, perfect example. I was gonna wait to pull this out, but all right, this was the most recent interview at sfreporter.com the interview where Fenn believes, or where Fenn has said that he is not so confident anymore that the searcher will announce their findings. The interviewer asks, did you ever think instead of burying the treasure? Right? Fenn interrupts, says, no, I never did say I buried it. I said it is hidden. That doesn't mean it isn't buried. It's just that I did not want to give that as a clue. He's telling you, I did not want to give that as a clue, meaning it's not buried. And I'll clarify that a little bit. So I'm going to go on. All right. How did you first tell the story that you would bury the treasure? Fenn says, I didn't bury the treasure. If you say that, I'm going to shoot you with a dull bullet. He didn't say, I never said. He says, I didn't bury the treasure. If you say that, I'm going to shoot you with a dull bullet. All right? So let's go back one more time. Did you ever think instead of burying the treasure? Now I never did say I buried it. I said it is hidden. That doesn't mean it isn't buried. It's just I did not want to give that as a clue. Next question. How did you first tell the story that you would bury the treasure? I didn't bury the treasure. If you say that, I'm going to shoot you with a dull bullet. Fenn did not bury the treasure. He was just not ready to give that as a clue. All right. All right. Is any specialized knowledge required to find the treasure? For instance, something learned during your time in the military, or from a lifetime of fly fishing? Or do you really expect any ordinary average person without your background to be able to correctly interpret the clues in the poem? Fenn says, no specialized knowledge is required, and I have no expectations. My thrill of the chase book is enough to lead the average person to the treasure. Which is weird. I mean, the poem is in the book, so he could mean this. But Fenn has also said that the book will not lead you to the treasure. The book contains subtle hints that will help you solve the clues, but will not lead you to the treasure. The poem contains 9 clues that will lead you directly to the treasure if followed correctly. But right here, he is saying, my thrill of the chase book is enough to lead an average person to the treasure. So, is he saying that only because the poem is inside of the book? Or is he saying that the thrill of the chase book is enough? Has anybody ever found it weird that the poem doesn't have a title? Like, are we just to assume that the poem is called The Thrill of the Chase? Or, like, we didn't know that the treasure chest was called Indulgence until not too long ago. You know, when somebody asked, you know, does the treasure chest have a name? But nobody's asked, does the poem have a name? We just assume that the poem's name is The Thrill of the Chase, but the book's name is The Thrill of the Chase. That doesn't mean that the poem name is. Did the streaming just stop, or is it just me? I hope it didn't stop. Is everybody still seeing me? Oh boy. Alright, did the streaming just stop, or is it just me? Stop for me before I had to refresh. Alright, everybody's is okay? Alright, I've got about 7 minutes, so I'm going to keep pushing through. I'm going to stop at 50 and see if there's any questions or whatever. Alright, on June 27th, 2014, if you could change one thing in life, what would it be? I would alter the gene of Homo sapiens that gives it the propensity to fight. Here is Forrest again with his, his views on war being wrong. Which, I don't know, I think I used the term liberal yesterday, but, I mean, that's really not, I mean, hands down, war is wrong, but sometimes necessary if it's, just. But he's saying that he doesn't want humans to fight anymore. And he said the same thing in his in the book, you know, when he said, how many presidents are going to say that no more, no more, and then once they get elected, they're going to go to war? Or, you know, the same people that are making the laws aren't the ones that are out putting boots on the ground and whatnot. Is the, oh, let's see if this is a different date. Yep, June 28th, 2014. Is the map that needs to be used to discover where Warm Waters Halt found online or in paper form or both? Come on now, a map is a map. The more detailed maps are most useful if you have the right map. But I'm not sure I needed to tell you that. Well, a map isn't a map. You know, we have satellite, we have topography, we have panoramic, we have, you know, what's that third one called? There's a bunch of different maps. A map is not a map. But, you know, just like he says, there's some that the more detailed maps are the most useful. Well, the more detailed maps are a different type of map. The less detailed maps are a different type of map. But, I don't know. That's where I'm going to leave that one because I don't really know where I'm going with that. All right. On June 28, 2014, your words and actions say you are a friend and lover of the environment more than most. Do you follow Leave No Trace, and did you while hiding the chest, i.e., stay on established trails? I think you're trying to get me in trouble, but that's where I am most of the time anyway, so I'll answer your questions. You may as well ask me if I love the air. I don't know, but I certainly am an appreciator of nature. Leave no trace is a rhetorical statement not intended to be taken literally. For instance, it is not feasible for you to not leave a footprint somewhere or a dry fly snagged high on a tree limb left by your back cast. But I agree with the philosophy of the phrase. I dislike seeing beer cans scattered around when I'm fantasizing that I am the only person who has ever been in that spot. Generally speaking, there are places where one should stay on established trails. Yellowstone is one. However, it reminds me of the worn out axiom, if you ain't the lead dog, the scenery never changes. When I am in the mountains or in the desert, the last place I want to be is on a trail. Ain't no adventure in that for me. There isn't a human trail in very close proximity to where I hid the treasure. I think that one speaks for itself, meaning he doesn't like going somewhere to see a bunch of litter, and he wants to believe that he was the only person that was there. But the phrase "leave no trace" is, it's exaggerated or whatever, meaning like, don't throw your food everywhere, or if you take a crap in the woods, freaking dig a hole, do your business, and freaking bury it back up, and so on and so forth. Yeah, Yellowstone, there's signs everywhere saying "Do not touch." It reminds me of the Kachina doll shop. Thin layer of crust. Okay, well, so is a Kachina doll. A porcelain doll, ceramic doll, or whatever. You break it, you bought it. I put my hands in my pocket and I got out of there as fast as I could, and I said, "What can I learn from this?" Right? That's what Yellowstone reminded me of, and I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? This Kachina doll shop is a metaphor for Yellowstone. But when we find the chest, as I'm certain we're bound to, or at least our chance is as good as anyone else's, would you be interested in buying it off me and or paying me to put it right back, thereby keeping the chase going? I promise a price that's under the Backpacker magazine's $7 million estimate. Fenn answers, perhaps, but you had better hurry and find it because I'll soon be 84 years old. Send me an email instead of a letter. Finally, thank you for the chase. Fenn says, you're welcome. Alright, this other person asks, are there any false clues or red herrings intentionally laid within the poem? He says, no, sir. Alright, the next one, then I'm going to have to wrap it up. Is the chest actually directly visible when you look quickly down, with Marvel gaze, or is it camouflaged in some interesting way? Also, you show a penchant for stretching the rules in some of your The Thrill of the Chase story. Is this what is meant by no place for the meek slash brave slash bold? Should we prepare to risk some authoritarian's wrath in our hunt? Fenn just responds, okay. Which, we know Fenn says he doesn't like some ranger telling him where he can't go. We know Fenn doesn't like trails. We know, he doesn't like anybody telling him what he can and can't do, and all the signs in New York City, when he asked the police officer, why does your city threaten me? Right? So, part of me believes that no place for the meek is no place for the submissive, right? You can't, you got to be bold. You got to take that leap of, you got to take the cold effort to walk and go somewhere you're not supposed to be at. Just because the sign is there that says trail closed, is there really a law that says that you can't go there? If you're on a national land, a public land, and if there is a trail closure sign, is there any law that says that you can't go around that gate? I mean, it's your land. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm gonna leave some X's right there so I know where to start next time. And before I close it out, and just a reminder, in 9 minutes, Fenn Treasure Hunter along with Adventure are going to be on live on Fenn Treasure Hunter's channel. All right, so go take a look at that, and hope you guys have a good time, and I'll probably see you guys over there in the chat. Before I go, is there anything that anybody wants me to talk about? Or I kind of want to start taking an approach of all of my description boxes are going to have my emails. So if there's something that you would like to see an episode on, or just leave it in the comments below, or let me know through email or whatever, and I'll see what I can do about making a video like that. Obviously, I'm not going to do something, like what I think the blaze is, right? I'll throw, some critical thinking thoughts out there and whatnot, but I really try not to give my solves or my thought processes. The whole reason why I kind of do my videos is to kind of spark different thought processes for, some people that have been in the search for a long time, then also new people coming into the search. So, like I said in my previous videos, I intentionally and deliberately avoided everything Forrest Fenn related because I didn't want my thought process influenced at all. So if I can, create some content that may be good for new searchers coming in to where I'm not going to taint their thought process, then that's what I aim to do for the most part. But how about the word that is key? Man, that one's drove me nuts too. I think it's something indecision. Indecision is the key to flexibility, and that's why I waited so long to hide my chest. Indecision is the key to being flexible with the poem, right? Well, what's indecision like? Is it questioning, or is it guessing, so on and so forth? I was just throwing that out there. So if you guys have anything that you absolutely want to see, when once I get finished with this series of, analyzing these questions and answers, I have no problem doing that. So, but other than that, I am going to log out. If you haven't already done so, please, like my videos, subscribe, mark the, enable your notifications, so that way you can see the next video. I'll try to keep putting out the reminders that, when I'm about to go live, so that way, it's no secret when I do. But other than that, have a good night, everybody, and let me know your comments below, and have a good one. Thanks, everybody.